Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Is Called Soccer YouTube channel. My name's Nathan, and today I wanted to talk about uh, Mauricio Pochettino and my opinion on if he should be hired back or not. Because recently there's been, everyone's out there giving their opinions. You have Alexi Lala saying that he shouldn't be welcome back, um, which you'll find later in the video I completely disagree with. Um, Yeah, so let's get into this. So first, I wanted to bring up this Yahoo article about him and the statements he made. Here at the top it says, "You had one job and you blew it," Alexi Lawless said. Um, he also stated, I mean, it's not that I want him to leave, but I think his cycle has just ran the course when it comes to Mauricio Pochettino. You had one job and it was the game against Belgium. He also said, "So I think that they, referring to U.S. soccer, move on. I believe he had a good time, but you had one job and you blew it." Let's get into that statement. I completely disagree that he was the one that blew the Belgium game. From the moment that the ball first kicked off, you could see that the team, not the tactics, not what Mauricio Pochettino was doing, but the team, the players, they didn't have it in them. They didn't want to win that game. And you could see that because they let them win 4-1, and that's not Mauricio Pochettino's fault. Now, if you said, "Oh, he got out coached or he got out tacticked," okay, but nobody's saying that, or they are saying that with no proof. How are you going to tell me that Pochettino got out tacticked or out coached without any proof? I think it came down to the players, in my personal opinion. I'm gonna pull up the foot mob of the game here. This was the same exact lineup as the 4-1 Paraguay game. Same exact lineup, a little different tactics. Des was playing a little higher up the field, but I feel like that really doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Pochettino wanted a little more attacking. I agree with it. Um, so you had Ballo. He played good in this game, in my opinion. He just didn't get any service. You have Christian Pulisic going out in the 60th minute. Um, Whether his injury was that serious or not, well, comes to find out. I mean, I don't know. Uh, I think I think he gave up on the game, and you can't blame Pochettino for your star player giving up on your game. I think that also in general, Robinson had a bad game. Freeze had a bad game. Ream had a bad game. Richards had a bad game. I didn't think Freeman actually played that bad. Tyler didn't have a great game. McKinney didn't have a great game. Basically, what I'm trying to say is the whole lineup didn't have a great game except a select few people. And Tillman played decently. He scored the free kick, which I don't. I think if it doesn't deflect, it doesn't go in. It was a good free kick. I think it would have been a good shot on target, but I don't think it goes in. I think Courtois saves that. To be honest, is it Courtois? How do you say his name? I don't know how to say his name. Let's see. Yeah, I think it is. Anyways, I think that when your players gave up, I think the players gave up here, the 33rd minute. I think that after they scored, right after we scored, the players just weren't in it anymore. And you could have said, okay, Poach could have made some subs at halftime. I agree with that. I think that, let me bring this back up. I think that what should have been done at halftime, I think Reem should have came off for Austin Trusty, in my opinion, because Reem was already dropping a bad game. But I understand Poach believing in his lineup and wanting to keep it the same. It makes sense to me. But I think Reina for Des. I mean, who else are you gonna put there? I mean, you could put. I mean, like you could put Zendejas, you could put Weah, but Weah had a horrible game. You could put Aronson. I wouldn't have been against that one either. But Reina had already scored in the tournament, and so that probably left him to believe that he should use. Sorry, he should use Reina in that position, and then he comes, he puts Sebastian Berhalter in. I think off the bench, Berhalter wasn't the worst option ever. I think he gave a lot of heart to the game that I don't think a lot of players did. Um, when he came in firing. He had a nice goal. It almost went in. Actually, would have been a banger. Um, I thought he had a decent game. He brought energy. Pepe didn't do anything. Um, Arsene Haji didn't do anything. Like I said, I would have brought Austin Trusty in. I would have maybe, if you wanted to go more of a defensive set in the second half, could have took Dest off for Scally if you really wanted to. Mark McKenzie, Miles Robinson. I'm glad they didn't touch the game. Um, and like I said, Aronson Reyes and Dejas could have brought him on. I don't think it changes anything, in my opinion. I feel like that, you know, nobody wanted to win that game. And so when we're going based off of, so should Pochettino be fired? I think that it needs to be less of a emotional discussion and more of a results discussion. He made this team look the best it's ever looked. Against that Paraguay game, that's the best I've ever seen this team look at all. And since BJ Callahan in the Nations League, I'm pretty sure that was the Nations League. So, you know, when the coach that you're wanting to fire made the team look the best, and mind you, he didn't have a whole cycle yet, 2 years I think it was, or a little less than 2 years to get this team on track, and this team was hurt. Some of the players were hurt. Pulisic, he came into this tournament with horrible form for his club. You know what I mean? Um, so he turned that into, a 2-1 group stage and then a 1-1 in the knockout rounds. And, in the games that it mattered, Paraguay, Australia, Bosnia, and Belgium. I don't count the Turkey game because obviously subs and people that are saying, or people that weigh that game in any sort of fashion, I disagree with, and I feel like you just don't watch the game. You're just a hater of the USA because obviously it was the backups. You know what I mean? So in the games that it mattered, we went 3-1. But obviously this loss is not acceptable. But I feel you can't completely blame that on Pochettino. Um, I think there's an argument for him to be fired. You know what I mean? He only beat one European club in his whole time as the coach. He has some ugly losses. Um, he, I forget what team we lost to. I think it was Panama in the Nations League, and we didn't get to the final, and we lost the third place match. So there's arguments like that, and then you could say people can say that this was a failure of a World Cup because we didn't get past the round of 16. Which, if we were coming into the World Cup and I told you that we thump uh, Paraguay, we thump Australia in the first half. It's a shaky second half, but we lose to Turkey with our backups, 3-2, and they only score in the last minute of the game. And then that we beat Bosnia 2-0 single-handedly. If I told you that, you would be like, oh, that's a good tournament. And then if I told you we lost to Belgium, obviously you'd be disappointed, but you'd be like, it's Belgium. I think the USA were favorites in this game because it was in the USA, and people that didn't know much about soccer were riding the hype. I think if you really looked at this game, you realize how dangerous of a game it was for the United States because I'll bring this back up. You have, a good striker, good left and right winger running at our back line. You have people running at Tim Ream, and not that Tim Ream's bad. I actually think Tim Ream, did his job when he was asked to, and he can only do so much. He's an old player. But when you have fast, athletic people running at Tim Ream, what do you expect but goals? You know what I mean? And you could say that you would expect Richards and Adams and Freeman and Robinson to compensate. I agree in some sense. I also don't think Ream should have been starting that game. From what we've seen out of Trusty, if he was fully fit, which I don't know if he was fully fit, but if Trusty was fully fit, he should have played this game, in my opinion. I think it would have been better for the United States. So overall, this whole recap of what I've been talking about, I believe that Pochettino should be given more time. I think one, he didn't get a whole cycle, and two, like his players gave up in the last game. If we're being realistic, so I think if you give Pochettino 4 years, which I'm not saying if we go to the Nations League and we get fourth place again, and then we go to the Gold Cup, we don't make the final. Like if things start looking bad, fire him. You know what I mean? This cycle, he was only hired for the World Cup. So that's why I'm judging him on the World Cup and how we've looked at it. And if you could get that team to look like the Paraguay game every single game, that's a very dangerous team. And he's the only coach that has made us look like that ever, in my opinion. So, what do you think 4 more years will do in his system with more players that he wants? With youth players being called up, new players. Hopefully, goalkeeper gets better, center back gets better. Um, more depth on the wings and the left and right back, and more depth for the midfield. I feel we could make a deeper run in 2030 with Pochettino. But if you go back and you hire someone like Steve Sharundalo, or you go hire someone like Greg Berhalter again, they're not going to make the team look like this. You know, when you pay for a top class manager, you look like a top class team. And in some of those games, we did look like a top class team. I think overall, the whole issue is our mentality as a team. They're soft. Pulisic is soft. Their best player is soft. Other players are soft. They complain. They don't put their heads down at work, you know. And you can have your opinion on whatever you want about that, but I feel you have to be a decent team or a good team to go far. You look at a team like Norway or even Switzerland, if you want to look at them, decent teams, good teams, but they have the mentality to go far. Switzerland almost beat Argentina. Norway almost beat England to go to the semifinals. I mean, both of them would have been in the semis, but tough teams that made a deeper run to the quarterfinals, their mentality's there. Now, do they have like Norway, two world class players? One, if you only want to count Holland. Two, if you want to count Odegaard. I would say one. I don't think that midfielder is world class, but he's really good, right? So they have a really good player and a world class player, right? But the whole rest of the team isn't, world class or anything like that. Something like a France or an England. They just have the mentality to be there. Same with Switzerland. I don't know if Switzerland actually has a world class player. They're a more well rounded team than us. Like they have better center backs. They have a better mentality than us, and it's why they went further. Um, I mean, even Paraguay went as far as us, and we thumped them 4-1. They have a better mentality than us. They almost beat France. Uh, our game would never be that close with France. We would probably lose fucking 6-1. You know what I mean? Um, so I feel like that matters. Um, and I think if you give Pochettino 4 more years in charge, where he can keep building the mentality he was building, because his team has a better mentality than when Greg Berhalter was the coach, but it's still not good enough. If you give him more time, you say, hey, you can build the mentality of this team. You have 4 years to put whoever you want, except some like MLS players. Like he better not be calling Miles Robinson in 2030. You know what I mean? You give him decent, good players that are coming up through our systems. I think it's a different World Cup in 4 years. But I think if we don't hire a coach, at least at his caliber, or keep him, I don't think we have that much success in the next World Cup. We'll probably go the same distance. I think we keep Pochettino, we go to the quarters. I'm not going to say the semis because that also is just who you run into, right? Say in the round of 16 we play Argentina, and then we play to Switzerland. Well, you could go to the semis because your tougher team was in the round of 16 before you got to the quarters. You know what I mean? Or you could get unlucky. You could play Switzerland, in the round of 16, which is a tough team, and then in the quarters you get France or England, because we would lose to England right now too, in my opinion. We'd lose to Argentina. All the teams that are in the semis right now, we'd lose to Spain. You could run into someone like that. We would have ran into Spain actually, like in the quarters. So we'd have been knocked down the quarters anyways, in my opinion. So Yeah, I think that when you give Pochettino 4 more years, you let him build the mentality of this team. I think that it would go a long ways, and I think that we would have more success in 2030 compared to a different coach. So, in my opinion, we should be keeping Mauricio Pochettino for the next 4 years. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on Friday.